Yeah, the first one to really thanks Stanley and his crew come over here. It's our great honor. I know it was funny, like I met Stanley during our digital day out last year. And then during the time we talked about what the guru, he was part of the keynote speaker in the event. Then I said, I need to know this guy. He knows so much, and a very inspirational talk. And then I later, I said, connect with him through LinkedIn. I said, wow, that's really something, so influential person in the country. I said, definitely I need to get him come to my class and to share the knowledge, inspire my students, I thought this is a great opportunity. And when he sent out his, bio, I was, wow, that's incredible. As when you read that, somebody from that kind of background be able to grow, and also in 12 years, how many jobs, there's like, wow, finally he found his passion. The social media, really the space he found his passion. And not just doing for himself and also for other businesses as well. How to build a brand and how to connect the community together. And also now he give back to the community to help university. Because come here, the university, we don't pay for that. We just talk about is how, because as a person grow to this level, I really want to help the young generation and for the students to be able to see they can do it. So it's my great honor to welcome and his crew here. And can we put hands together? Welcome, Stanley.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And is it this one?
Yes, yeah.
Cool, for the slides? Okay. So thank you so much for that introduction. Makes me sound way more important than I really am. But he is right, Herbert is right in that this sort of thing is a big part of what we like to do, is like teach people more of what we do. So we don't safeguard anything that we do. Everything we do in our business, we give away. We don't think of anyone as competitors. We like to help teach as many other people in the industry as possible. And so I'm really excited to be here. Maybe you guys aren't, but I am. So at least one of us are. Does anyone know or have seen any of our content before? Has anyone seen any attention seeker stuff? I would be surprised if you have in this group, maybe, especially my stuff. You might have seen Joni. Definitely maybe seen Joni Lee. Our content, so we're maybe 30 people now. We got about 2.5 million followers across all our platforms, and we probably average about 20 million views a month on our own socials. And then with our clients, our specialty is that we help people on social media grow large organic brands really fast. It's not uncommon for us to take a brand and grow them to 100,000 followers within sort of 30 days, all organically, using no paid, no buying of followers or buying of views or anything, just purely good content, putting it out on their platform, helping them grow. So that's kind of what we're known for. We got clients all over the world, US, Australia, Dubai, London, things like that. We've got an office that we're opening now in New York as well. But we started literally in my mate's bedroom in Hillsborough. And it's just me in my mate's bedroom trying to get this off the ground. And now we've got a studio based out in Grey Lynn, where there's 24 of us, I think, in that office. And then we got a bunch of remote staff around the world as well. And a bunch of interns, actually a couple from this university as well. So that's a little bit about us. What today's talk is about, I was briefed on what's social media's impact on business. That's what today's talk is about, right? You guys probably already know that, but for me, I don't think I can start this talk without sort of explaining what I think of when I think of brand. And without thinking of brand the right way, you can't get to social media the right way. And so I thought I'd start off with a little like the way I think of it and how I think of brand. So first of all, and it's kind of like a history and time, I think of single product as like the first type of brands that ever sort of existed in the marketing world. And like probably maybe the most famous example of a single brand is Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola as a brand has been around forever now. It's really well known. It's one of the most recognizable brands in the world. Everyone who sees it, I'd be surprised if anyone in this room hadn't seen it before. But most people in the world have seen Coca-Cola, right? So it's a brand, we know what it stands for. We know what it means to enjoy and have fun in summer and young people having fun. You've seen all the ads before, right? You understand what a Coke ad looks like. You also understand how much Coke means for Christmas, especially in this country, Santa and everything they do there. So there's Coca-Cola as a brand, right? So that's the first type of brand that we work with. Then there's a house of brands. And this is where you have a company, which is a brand, but underneath it, it has a bunch of other brands that are its products. And for me, the best example is McDonald's. It's the most easily recognizable, right? So what are some of the brands under McDonald's? Tell me. And if you don't, I'll start pointing you out. So just, raise your hands, or I'll just point at you right there. Yep, you can see me. Yep, you. What's a brand under McDonald's? Oh, you go. I was going for both of you, but yeah, go. What's a brand? What's something that McDonald's sells? Who has never been to McDonald's?
Cheeseburger.
Cheeseburger. There you go. Frozen Coke. What else? Big Mac. Do you realize that those are brands? No. If we have to pull teeth, I'll pull teeth. So I'll pull out. This is going to be a real interactive thing. So I'm just going to keep pointing people out. What other brands have we got at McDonald's?
Chicken nuggets.
Chicken nuggets. Good. Anything else? McFlurry. Okay, you're with me. We'll wake up soon enough. I know it's pretty early for you guys. It's 10 a.m. Oh, yeah, sorry, mate.
I was going to ask why they considered individual brands versus like part of the market.
They are both. So it's not an or question, it's an and question. So the reason why I can't start a burger joint and call it a Big Mac because it's a licensed trademark product and that's a brand that it owns. And therefore, Big Mac can tell its own story. So can Ronald McDonald, so can Grimace, so can the cheeseburger. I mean, the cheeseburger as a brand isn't trademarked and probably doesn't have as many legs as what, say, Big Mac does. But they are brands. It's the same with iPhone. It's a brand in itself. People talk about it as a brand. I'd rather have an iPhone than a Samsung, but you don't necessarily talk about Apple the same way as a phone. You don't call it, oh, I've got an Apple. Most people think of it as iPhone first of all. You might think of it as Apple if you're really in the Apple system, but that brand is what you affiliate with. So it's both a brand and a part of a larger thing. But that's a good question because it is both. Yeah. Okay, then we have personal brands. And so personal brands started to exist a bit more in recent history where the person at the top of the brand is the reason for its growth and the reason for the product. Any examples of a personal brand that's huge that you can think of?
Logan Paul.
Logan Paul, perfect example. Yep. Anyone else?
MrBeast.
MrBeast, great one. Great one. What about this guy? Who's this guy? Hey? Elon. Okay. So we had a few laughs because we know, right? I mean, I just showed you a symbol, a random symbol of Unicode text, and you know that there's a guy behind it who owns it, and his name's Elon Musk. And what else does Elon Musk own? SpaceX, Tesla, yeah, all that sort of stuff, right? So his personal brand is the reason for Tesla's valuation, essentially, right? It's way overpriced relative to what it really does because people believe in him and his vision and what he's going to do with that business, right? So there's a bunch of people in the world who have these brands, and whether you love them or not, it doesn't matter. They know who their target audience and they go after them and they build a brand behind it, right? And then the same thing what we just talked about, the house of brands underneath. These people have the company brands and then they have the product brands underneath that. So it's like we're sort of like layering up these brands, right? So personal brands, for me, is a real important way to look at social as well. Without personal brands, most of social falls over. When I asked you guys for examples, the two brands you gave me were personal brands. The social media brands. The two personal brands you gave me, Logan Paul and MrBeast, are essentially personal brands, right? They built their YouTube channels or Vine or wherever Logan Paul started off of social media. And then the final one, which for me is maybe more important today, and is probably the thing that I see happening more and more of, is team brand. This might be a little bit harder of a question to ask, but does anyone have an example of a company who does really well as a team brand space? Any thoughts?
Is this more like showing like a culture?
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that. Do you know any examples of someone who does it well?
Well, my favorite basketball team in Miami Heat, they push the culture thing.
Yeah, good, really good example. Yeah. Sport teams are the easiest to think of because the team in itself is a brand. Miami Heat is a brand, and so they're made up of people that are all quite famous and they're all quite talented, so it's really easy for sports brands to do it. So yeah, perfect example of a team brand. Another example is MrBeast. MrBeast's whole team now, a part of it, the boys that he has in his team have their own following. Like some of them have got 1 million followers on their own Instagrams and stuff like that. They are their own brands now. Big enough that if you follow MrBeast, they have their own controversies and storylines and their own brands underneath them. And these boys will go on to do their own stuff if they want to into the future. An example for me, just to be a little bit selfish, is us and the way that we build our content. So a lot of our content, if you watch, is all about our team. We have stuff everywhere. So we've got like, you might have seen Joni. Some people might have seen Joni. Joni's closer to your guys' age than I am, a lot closer. But Joni's got a personal brand. She's at 600K or so. There's our personal brands on LinkedIn, and all of us have a pretty strong LinkedIn or social media presence. We have podcasts with different people on them. We have our attention seeker profile in itself and the different channels that we have, and that showcases all the different teams. These guys here often make an appearance. Tyler is always in it all the time. She's a superstar. We have our newsletter, the same thing, that's written by Charlotte and Sophie. And then our Twitter and our X and Threads is run by Jillian, one of our team. So I guess what I'm saying is we have all these brands underneath our business, or these social media profiles, I should say, sorry, that are run by team members, right? And what that does, the reason why I think it's so important is that the people who resonate with me, my peer group, as a CEO, as a founder, is a lot smaller than the people who resonate with Joni and Lee and Tyler as the staff, right? Because most people in the world aren't CEOs and founders, right? Most of them aren't, most of them won't be. So there's only a small audience, much smaller audience that will resonate with me, but a much larger audience will resonate with the middle of my team. Does that make sense? All right? So because of that, we can reach larger audiences because we're sort of talking to everyone whilst also talking under a brand. And you'll often get there's often some really sound advice to not speak to everyone, because if you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. There's a common trope there. And that's really true if you're speaking from one person. If I was to try and do, I don't know, some brain rot or Gen Z slang, I would look like an idiot. And it just wouldn't work, right? But then when the young guys on my team, the 19-year-olds, not a problem. They can pull it off. So they can talk to the audience who talks that way or makes that sort of content, but I can't. And so we can have a different social media platform or a different show that speaks in. Are we keeping up? Is this all making sense? Yep, cool. Okay, so now we're through brand. That's how I think of brands. There's a good example. Who knows this brand? Put your hand up if you know it. Just one, two? One brand? Okay. So this is a large, I keep standing in front of that. This is a large, well, not large. This is a New Zealand streetwear brand. It's owned by Joe Webb and Stan Walker. Do we know who Stan Walker is? Okay, cool. So he owns this company. It's a clothing line. So that's their Instagram on the left-hand side there. And that is their clothing brand, right? So that's the brand for the clothing. And it puts out its own social media. It's quite often got their models and Joe, who's one of the founders on it. Stan Walker appears a bit, but he's not a big front and center. He's got his own brand. People know that he owns it, so that's enough. But this middle one here, who's seen this show? Has anyone seen Morning Shift? But there's only one person in here watch. He's kind of seen it. Clips. Yeah, clips. That's what I mean. Who's seen the clips? 2 people. 3. Okay, we've got 3 people. Gosh, this day the generation don't watch social media, right? So these guys are about 1 million followers in social media. Majority of the audience is New Zealand. So I wonder who the 1 million people are, because they're not University of Auckland students. But they are owned solely by okay? So this is a podcast that's owned by this clothing brand, right? Which is not normal, right? It's not normal for a clothing brand to go start a podcast that has nothing to do with them. But it's a massive driver of all their business because these guys wear their clothes in everything. All right, so if you go into the comments of these videos, people are like, where did that blue hoodie come from? How do we get that blue hoodie? Well, you can quickly find it when you click on that link in their bio, and you can buy their blue hoodie. Because how many people love watching, how many people follow clothing brand Instagrams and TikToks and love it? Right, because maybe 1 or 2. It's not a big thing though, right? What sort of people do you follow on social media? What do they do? I mean, we had 2 people already, Logan Paul and MrBeast, but what do we sort of follow on social media? What's genres? Sports, yeah, cool. Lifestyle content, yep. Comedy, yep, perfect. So you follow stuff that's entertaining. and watching a brand put out product isn't very entertaining. It used to be, and it can still be sometimes. Like, people go and watch the new iPhone launch. They're going to do it. There are ways to build hype around product, but it's not like an everyday thing, right? You can't just consume hours after hours of product content, right? Well, not most people won't. But you can watch hours of comedy, or you can watch hours of sport. I mean, it takes 2 hours just to watch a rugby game, so you'll sit there and watch a whole rugby game for 2 hours. This is like a comedic podcast. It's funny, humorous podcast. They have nothing to do with clothing, but they know people will watch it. They have about 1 million followers across their platforms. They have about 200K, 250K maybe across their platforms. And this company's been around a bit longer than this one. This is only a year old now, but they've been able to grow really fast because what they did is they took social media and they said, you know what? No one wants to watch us put a hoodie up. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and look at that and be like, wow, I'm so entertained. Like, my life's so good, right? You're not gonna do that. But when you watch one of these awkward tonguey and funeral moments, like awkward funeral, you're gonna watch it, because it's funny. Because we've all been to funerals and we can relate to it, right? So you're gonna watch it. And just like Nike did with Michael Jordan, they put the clothes on them. Just like Nike built its empire off the back of Michael Jordan and everyone wanting to be like Mike, these guys are doing it with these two boys, Jordan and Brooke, from, well, he used to be on MyFM, right? So they built this whole channel that people like and relate to these guys, and now they're selling a bunch of clothes through it. Does that make sense? All right? So the point, oh wait, and this here is Facebook. So does anyone in here still go on Facebook? What do you use Facebook for?
Marketplace.
Yeah, what else? Marketplace, eh? Marketplace, or like groups or events, or checking out with family, maybe, because you might not follow your family on TikTok and Instagram. Yeah. So these guys got that. They understood there's no point putting reels and stuff up everywhere on Facebook because people don't use Facebook for that reason. It's a different thing. So they built a private group where they can have an inside joke with people, and they got 45,000 members in that group. So for a Facebook group that's only started a year ago, that's pretty impressive. Like, no one jumps on Facebook these days, and these guys are 45,000 in the audience. And what they're able to do with that audience is they're able to take them and have a private conversation with them one-to-many about anything. And recently, they launched 660 pre-sales in their shifters group. So they were the first to give them out to the marketplace, and they had an allocation. I think it was like a third of the tickets, and they sold them out in like 3 minutes. Their group sold out all their tickets for 63 minutes because that group is highly engaged with this audience and we're real keen to participate, right? So as you can see, this isn't a normal, like, and when you learn about social media, this isn't a normal path for most brands, right? Most time, you learn about social media and you're like, oh, cool. I'm gonna make a Facebook page, an Instagram page, a TikTok, and maybe if I can be bothered, I'll do X and YouTube. But you'll definitely have like Instagram, and these days more and more businesses will jump on TikTok, and you might have a Facebook page because you can't do your Instagram page without it. And that's pretty much the only reason you make a Facebook page these days. And it's all about clothing. It's all the brand. And then you're trying to go, why doesn't anyone want to see my t-shirts that I make? Or why doesn't anyone want to see my accounting service that I make? Or why doesn't anyone care about One New Zealand's new mobile phone plan that I posted on my Instagram? And that does nothing. And then what do you have to do? When no one watches your content, what does a brand do? How do you get people to watch it? Pay. You put money behind it, and you push it out, and you have to do paid. And what happens when you guys see an ad on social media? Skip it. Straight away. You don't even sit on it, you just go straight past it. And so there's diminishing returns in this, I guess, traditional way of doing social media, which is to build a couple of social media profiles under the one brand and showcase what you do as a business. That's what most people think of when they do social media. Let's showcase what we do as a business, and then people will buy us. And then what has gone and proven, along with a bunch of other examples, which I'll get into, is that what if we just did something that people actually want to watch, build brand affinity with us, loved us, and then they went to one of our other brands under our house of brands and bought the thing that we do because they want to support and grow with us. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's like this interesting way of looking at social media now where it's not just, I picked up a client as an accountant, or you get hired as PwC's new social media or marketing manager, and they're like, make some great content. You're like, guys, this is PwC, you guys are boring as shit. Like, how do we make content here? Well, what if you had a really interesting other show or other social media account alongside it that was funded by PwC and you drove people there, right? There's other ways to think about this now if you're smart. Who knows this brand? It's a very American brand, but who's seen it? Can you put your hand up if you've seen this? Okay, so that's interesting, right? Because it's a very American brand. It's not that big here. I mean, you can get it here, but it's not that big. But why have people seen this?
Sport.
Sport, yeah, good. What else? Any other reasons?
The ads are funny.
Their ads are funny, exactly. Sports, ads are funny, celebrities. They've taken an approach. So Old Spice was a boring old brand. It was an old man's deodorant brand. That's what it was. And they realized that we're done. Like if we don't fix this, I think Procter & Gamble brought it. They're like, if we don't fix this, this brand that we just spent millions of dollars on is going to go under. And so they decided to take a humorous approach to it and build a social media strategy as well as a TV ad strategy, because to be fair, when they redid it, it was mostly on TV, around humorous, entertaining content that, to be honest, took the piss out of their product most of the time, right? And so if you go on here and watch a lot of this, like you can already see in terms of like followership for a deodorant brand, remember? This is deodorant, shampoo, like men's wash care stuff. 150,000, 190,000, 829,000 on YouTube, and 176,000 over on X. That's not normal for like Rexona roll-on. You go have a look at theirs. Like, are you going to get a Rexona roll-on page that does this sort of numbers? Like these view accounts too, when you start to look in some of these, they have videos if you scroll down that are like in the millions, right? Because they've done fun, humorous content that the product's not the hero, the people are the hero. But because of the content being entertaining and funny, and you're having celebrities like Ronnie Chang up there doing funny stuff, you recognize his personal brand, which is part of this larger team brand that Old Spice has of all their influencers and celebrities they have, as well as the sports stuff that they do as well. They then take it down to his personal brand, like Ronnie Chang, and then you watch this really interesting thing about one of the products inside the larger company, which is Procter & Gamble. Does that make sense? So it's like, this is a different, interesting take on how can you do social media. This isn't just a brand just putting up random product. Like, if you tell me right now that one of you guys would look at a product ad about deodorant, you need to realize that you're young and get a new life. Like, there's boring content. Why would you do that? But you will watch this. If you go scroll on these guys' content now and you go through, especially like the YouTube, go look at their old ads. Like they put all their archived ads. It's hilarious. It's real good. It's actually properly funny, not like a business trying to be funny. They're actually funny content, right? Which is shown in the amount of follower count. You guys don't just follow people for the sake of it, right? Like, you're not gonna just give your subscription, especially on YouTube. No one subscribes on YouTube unless you really want to come back for their content. It might be a little different on TikTok and Instagram, but YouTube, you don't get subscribers on YouTube unless your stuff's good. It just doesn't happen. So, an interesting case study of just how, when you think of brand and you think of social media, the ways of it always being done isn't always applicable today. And then, I don't know if anyone, I'd be surprised if you know this brand. Does anyone know this brand? No, I'd be real surprised because they just blew up recently because this is a client of ours. So they're called Hairification. They're a shampoo brand and they make growth formula shampoo, really niche shampoo product for females. And so even more niche again, right? Because if you think of people going bald, it's not females you're thinking of, like as a society thing. But actually it's a big problem for females, like stress-related alopecia, damage from bleaching hair, things like that, where women's hair's thinning. And so they need help thickening the hair back up and helping it regrow. And most of that shampoo is in a salon, right? And those girls, who buys their shampoo from a salon here? Any of the girls? Okay, how much does it usually cost from a salon? $50. $50 is like entry point, right? Yeah, and it only goes up from there. Sometimes, like my wife, don't even get me started on how much she spends on her shampoo, but that starts at $150 for what she spends on when she buys a shampoo, right? And so Hairification was like, well, actually, this formula that you're creating isn't that expensive to make. In fact, it costs no more, really, than the other shampoos cost to make, like Pantene Pro V, when you're at scale. It's just that it's like cents in the dollar for these guys, which at a big brand like Procter & Gamble, that's a big margin. That's losing 2 or 3 cents profit margin. But for a small disruptor, that's just the price you pay to take market share. So Hairification is a brand that does that, right? So it's not that exciting really. It's just a shampoo brand. And so we decided that, well, why don't we just, we got a brand new brand here we can do something different with. Let's just do something stupid. Something so stupid that that's almost the opposite of shampoo. And so this series here went for 31 days, is day 1 or day X of not washing my hair. And so we've just said we're not going to wash our hair on a client who makes shampoo. Right? It's just like the opposite of what you do for a shampoo brand. And as you can see, that's their follower count after 31 days. So they're only about 40 days in now. They're real new in terms of social media. They had 50 million views in the first month because of that series. But that series went out as the main show. That was like the morning shift show, right? That was like the big customer acquisition show where everyone watched because they're like, this is hilarious. How is this girl not washing her hair? Which then turned into, here's some tips of how to make your hair last longer. Let's help you get that money, right? Let's help your boss pay you, because her boss was going to give her $100 for every day that she didn't wash her hair. And so, as dumb as that sounds, which I get it how dumb that sounds, that there took off. And it started a conversation around washing hair. It started a conversation with these guys and their audiences about how best to look after your hair and how best to wash your hair and what different things you could do. And she so happened to use this hair mask. And for guys, if you don't know what hair mask is, neither do I. But girls use it for something. And apparently it's good. And I don't know. That's as much as I need to know. But she used it to help her not wash her hair for 31 days because it helped revitalize her hair. It helped dissipate the oils that had accumulated in her hair. So she kept using it. She then did these other videos. We had these other 2 types of videos that went out either side of it, which were her trying to style her hair in different ways to make it look okay, even though it hadn't been washed. Her talking about different ideas around what she could do to wash and clean and all that sort of stuff. And she just continued to build this conversation about hair care and what to do with hair care. And then we decided about 20 days in, what if we raised the stakes to go, my boss told me that he'll double the pay if I can get to 100K followers. And at the point, we're at about 20,000. And within 4 or 5 days, it went from 20K to 100K because everyone was like, yep, we're in here. We've been following you the whole time. Like, we've got millions of views here, but now we're going to click follow. We're not just going to get served it, right? So we grew the following as well. So now you've got 100,000 people following. You're averaging 10 million views a week on this. She started doing radio interviews with, like, even here in New Zealand, like Edge Breakfast. These guys are based in Melbourne. So they're not even in New Zealand. They're based in Melbourne. They were on the Edge Radio Breakfast show in New Zealand because everyone started watching this show. She's getting stopped in the streets, Aspen. Like, people are recognizing, going, hey, not washing hair, like, keep it up, like, we support you. All around Melbourne, she's getting recognized. And then she does her hair wash. And then so her hair wash, we live streamed the whole thing. So people were in the salon with her as she was getting her hair washed from, like, a professional hairdresser, which just happens to be her sister, lucky enough. We did this hair wash. She had about, I think at the peak, it was like 30,000 people were on this live stream watching her get her hair washed. And then since that, the new strategy now is they own this conversation around hair care, all things hair care. And they've never had to once talk about their products. She uses the spray, but they never really talked about their product. They just talked about hair care, right? So this is the conversation they want to own. So they now own the conversation right now, currently, on TikTok around hair care. And it just so happens if you click their link, you can buy shampoo. But also, they're not an e-commerce brand. That's not where most of their sales come from. In fact, only about 7% of their sales come from e-commerce. As you can see up there, they've got Coles Priceline, and they've got online there, but they've also got, they're rolling out into New Zealand and Woolworths. They're going to Boots and Superdrug in the UK. They're going to the US, but all in store. And so then the question was like, does this translate from online to in-store? Because that's always a big thing for digital marketing and social media marketing, because brands are like, cool, we don't sell online, we need people to come in store. Well, that hairspray mask was, it's used to sell about 20% of what the conditioner sold, right? So, and that's pretty normal for this sort of thing. Most people would buy shampoo and conditioner before they're going to buy a hair mask. So about 20% of the people who bought conditioner would also buy hair mask or the volumes. By the end of this campaign, those were even. So they had 5 times the hair mask, right? And all of that traffic was driven and wasn't cannibalized and was come in through Priceline and Kohl's from people watching these videos. So when we talk about impact, like that's a really good thing for you guys to know, these sorts of case studies, because you're going to go out in the workforce and you might work in a place where it's retail or, I don't know, hospitality or something, and people going, yeah, but like, cool, you're doing all this fancy stuff, but like, are people going to walk in my store? And it does, it works. Like we've got countless of these examples of people getting brand affinity and then going in to do something. And you guys all know that because like, you guys will watch stuff on social media and want to do it. The only reason Fred Again's selling out as fast as he's Fred Again selling out is because the hype's getting built about Fred Again. We had Caitlin in our team who bought tickets and was like, I don't even know who this guy is. But she's going to this Fred Again concert because people have seen the hype on social media and they want to be part of something. People have seen the hype of this and they want to be part of something. Who's seen Broke Boy Taco? Who's watched that guy? Broke Boy Taco, right? So Broke Boy Taco builds up all this hype, sells out in minutes of his tacos every time he does it. There's just this thing that social media does really translate to in-world stuff. Okay, so I've proven my point a little bit that if we've got the right type of brands and we think of them the right way, we can think of other ways of showcasing them on social media as opposed to just the Big Mac or just McDonald's or just Elon Musk. There's lots of different ways to think of social media, which means you can have multiple social media profiles for one company. You don't just have to have the core social media channel. And then you need to understand what that audience is. Hairification is a good example because we knew that the audience here was females washing their hair or not washing their hair or how to look after their hair. That was the audience that was coming through and we're having that conversation with them. On the morning shift, it was the same sort of people who watch morning shift are the same people who would also wear streetwear, the type of clothing that you know makes, right? So they found their right audience. And then they're having the right conversation with them about their brand. So in this example, hair care, owning the conversation of hair care is stupidly valuable because Hairification can now do any other product in the hair care space, right, and sell it. They only do 3 at the moment, but they could do a whole bunch more and release it because people trust these guys that they're right. And then people bought the products and now there's videos being made celebrating how good their product was and worked. Cool? Make sense? Any questions about any of this? Yeah, we'll pick on questions soon. So what can you do? So in my mind, when it comes to brand positioning, it's always key. Like starting a brand positioning, this is this understanding what is the brand, who are the brands, what are the brands that we have underneath this company that we can use, and don't get like so closed-minded on that it's just McDonald's. McDonald's isn't the only brand. You could make a whole social media channel for Ronald McDonald, right? You can make a whole social media channel for the Big Mac, and it would work if you did it right, okay? So brand positioning, who are the brands? Are there people in the brands? Are there products in the, under the brand? What are all the brands under the brand? And how many team members are there? Is there multiple personal brands we can use to talk to different audiences at different times? And then once you understand that, what do those brands as a whole stand for? Getting the positioning right. You know, if you're gonna do, let's go back to McDonald's because I'm sure everyone knows what McDonald's is. But if you've got Big Mac and Grimace and Nuggets and McMuffins, they all speak to the same thing. They all ladder up to a same, I guess, brand positioning that McDonald's has, right? They don't stray too far from that truth. Does that make sense? Like you're not gonna get a burger from McDonald's that is some rebellious name like Burger Fuel would do and is like kind of outrageous with, you know, like Burger Fuel has all its crazy shit that it does. You're not going to get that from McDonald's because that would fit out of place, right? Everything they do, even when they do big gourmet burgers, still look like McDonald's burgers. Does that make sense? So they've got positioning right. And then the second thing to be real mindful of when you're going through this journey of social media creation is who's the audience? Like who are you trying to speak to? And who are you trying to speak to where? Because you won't just have one target audience. A lot of brands will be like, I want everyone with money. Anyone with money, they're my target audience, which is a stupid thing to say, but if you break that up into segmentation, you can say, cool, on Facebook, we're going after this group. On Instagram, we're going after this group. On X, we're going after this. On TikTok, we're going after these 3 groups, and we're going to do 3 different social media profiles on TikTok to get each one. Does that make sense? Are you with me still? Yep. We haven't fallen asleep yet? No. Cool. And then conversation is, I think, maybe the piece that most brands get wrong. Most brands understand brand positioning. Most brands understand audience, right? But conversation, what is the conversation you want to own, is one that people don't think of properly. They think their conversation they want to own is my product or service is cool, so therefore buy it, right? When you look at a company on TikTok or Instagram, that's what you kind of see, right? You're like, there's a brand out there showing how cool their stuff is. And as I've shown through some of these examples of big social media profiles, they're not having a conversation about their products, they're having a conversation about something their product does or supports or works with. So in the case of their conversation they're owning is street culture and also humorous culture and a type of person, a conversation that a type of person who wears their product would have. And like, to put it bluntly, the type of person they're looking for is the same as what the MyFem listener was. And that's why they took, when Jordan got into trouble and got fired from MyFem, they took him, they put him on the show, and they knew that they could attract the same audience that they wanted. And then from that, they were able to have the same, like if you ever watch their show, it's like a bunch of mates hanging out, having a laugh. And those mates that are sitting around having a laugh, that's their audience. People like that, okay? And in Hairification, the conversation that they wanted to have was hair care. And so they didn't need to talk about their product because they're having a conversation about hair care, and we're smart enough to do the association. If they're the trusted people around hair care and they also sell hair care products, well then I also trust their hair care product. That make sense? Now that reputation starts to damage if their product can't deliver, but that's a different problem. As a marketing team, that's not your problem. That's product's problem. That's their problem to make sure they make a good product. Your problem is to make sure people have that connection, yeah? So, 3 real key things that I think of when I think of social media, which might be a little different to what most people do. Most people in today's world is like, how do you go viral? Like, what's the best hook to use? Like, what's all that stuff? None of that means crap unless you've got good brand positioning, a good audience, and good conversation. Making good reels and TikToks, that's easy. Like getting videos to get 4 million views, that's actually not that hard to do. The team do it all the time. What's hard is to have that viral video, have the conversation you want to have with the right audience about the right brand. Does that make sense? So that's, for me, are the 3 key takeaways when you get into social media, and that's the impact that it has on companies. When you get these 3 things right, this company owns this conversation. And with that conversation, they can do anything they want. Anything they want. Yeah? Okay. From like a presentation perspective, that's all I got for you. That's like 45 minutes, so that's probably enough me air bashing you. But what about questions? Like, I've thrown a whole bunch at you. What questions do you have for me? What questions do you have about this topic? Oh, sorry, mate. Yeah.
So you were saying you've got, I don't know what the diversity is in terms of international or foreign brands, but
Yeah.
what do you, especially with social media when it comes to comedy, etc., what do you find is the biggest difficulty with different cultures and how they differ in
Yep, good question. So it's less about, I'd say it's less about geographical cultures and more about company culture that separates this. Because comedy, for instance, is in every culture. Every culture has comedy of some sort. And so when we think of like brands and where we're going in and how to navigate that cultural lens, we less think about it from a geographical or social cultural lens, and more look at what's the culture of this company and what's their brand positioning. Because there are, you can't take like a very serious brand and make it comedic without a really good strategy. That's really hard to do. If their company structure and everything is serious and professional, like if you're like a doctors, right? Like let's say you're like a chain of doctors, and then I just start making piss take content about our doctors, like you're not gonna trust them if they're just comedians. Like that, as much as it might get views, you're not gonna have the right conversation with your audience, so you're gonna lose that part of it. So I'd more look at it like that rather than different cultures from societal or geographical locations, because we're all human. All of human nature has all the big major genres, comedy or drama or whatever it might be. So when you're making these shows, it's more important to know the client really well. What's their brand positioning? Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah,
cool. I'm more surprised that
Yeah.
the differences in culture don't vary enough that you have to change the way in which you market the differences.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. MrBeast is a good example. He talks about this a lot, actually, if you think about his content, where the fundamental truth of the piece of content has to be human. You have to not be able to understand what they're saying and still get the video. And there's like truths in human culture that run through it doesn't matter where you're from, you'll get it. You'll understand the humor or the sadness or the happiness or the drama or whatever it is, because we're human. And I think it's quite a, like, without being too woo-woo, it's like kind of a nice thing. Like, humans actually at a fundamental level understand that. Like, if you get a really good piece of content and it gets, say, 200 million views, for being a good piece of content, not just chocolate-covered strawberries, but like actually a good piece of content, everyone will understand it. Like, they will get it, even if they can't speak the language, or the people in it don't look like them, or even if they're in a home or restaurant or location that they don't even recognize. They'll still get the content because it speaks to a human truth that we all have. This societal, cultural lens stuff is more about sensitivities, and I think that's the only thing that really comes in there. There's cultural sensitivities that, say, Western cultures, I mean, I probably shouldn't drop C-bombs in this room, but like, C-bombs in New Zealand content, you can get away with. When you're in the US, it's not as easy, right? I mean, they kind of have a little giggle to themselves when they hear our content, but they don't also like it. So there's cultural sensitivities that you have to be mindful of, but that's not really, that's just script writing. That's just editing the script to make sure it's doing what it needs to do. But actually, in terms of like genres, nah, I don't see it. Yeah, good question though, yeah.
I was gonna say that I like your strategy of just going completely opposite with the content idea, but then like, how do you maintain in a way that you are getting the right audience? Because like, I could be keen to watching a lady without washing her hair for a month, but the chances of me buying some product that they're selling is like really low. So
Yeah.
how do you make sure that those 100K followers are actually, but I know what you said before, like you created a conversation about it, and all of them
Yeah.
are potential buyers, but what about the other audiences also coming through with
Yeah, this is a really good question. We get this a lot with clients, like, how many of my 100K followers are potential buyers? And honestly, like, not very many. And if it was lots of them and as clients, then I'd be charging a lot more for what we do, because that's amazing. Imagine if I can get 100,000 people to buy shampoo at $25 a pop. You know, that's $2.5 million every 6 weeks or 5 weeks that they buy a new thing. Like, I'd be asking for 5 million a month, right? So it's just not how it works. But the way it works, to your question, is that to get to the, say, 10,000 customers that you want, I need 100,000 people watching, because only a percentage of people are ever going to be your customer. You know, there's never going to get 100% cut through with all your audience. It's just never going to happen. And if you think that's going to happen, you're just naive. Like, you've got to not ever think you can build an audience up of only people who will care about you. Because the only way to really do that is to build an audience really slowly, right? You build an audience really slowly and you bring them on. Now, that then says, well, let's do it slowly then, right? And just build a slow audience of people. But by the time you've got to 100,000 building it slow, the first people you brought on have grown, they've moved on in life, they're now having different conversations, they don't really care about your content, and so they're following you still, because it's not normal for us to unfollow people, but they're no longer target audience, and so they've moved on. So the better way to do it is just like, instead of taking 5 years to get you 100,000, can you do it in 30 days? And then you just know that 90%, or to be honest, 99% of those people are just not the right people. They're just not gonna buy from you. But that's okay, because they're gonna like and share their content to more people who are. And if it was 1 in 100 people followed you would be your potential customer, I mean, it's not even that high. That's not even how high it is, but if it was, that's huge. To have 1,000 people in a month become new customers in a shampoo brand, so we're talking like 25K a month now in revenue just from 30 days of social media posting, is insane. It wouldn't be that high. It's not how it works, but to your point, how do you make sure they're all your audience? You can't, and you won't, and they will never be, no matter what. They just will never be until you get to a size and length that you've been around so long now, like Nike, that if people follow Nike, they've probably got some Nike. They've probably got something Nike. So that's a different thing. But Nike doesn't really need help on social media. Nike just has to exist, and they're going to be, because they've been around for so long. McDonald's is the same. They've been around for so long. We've all had McDonald's at some point, and if you haven't, then you're either going to one day, or you've just got some aversion to that food, right? And so you'll never, and so that's okay. And there'll be some people who have never bought Nike, of course, but most people who follow them, if you're never going to eat McDonald's, you'll never follow them either, you know? So you'll never have followers who haven't had McDonald's on McDonald's page. You're never going to get some like really strict vegan who hates the corporatization of McDonald's following McDonald's, unless they're doing it purely to stay ahead of them as a, you know, the same reason people followed Trump on Twitter, because they wanted to make sure what the crazy shit he was doing, so they could understand the stock market's going to crash. Yeah, that stuff. Good question though, because it is a question we get a lot. Who are these people? Are those 50 million views potential customers? Probably not, only maybe less than 1%. But 1% or less than 1% of 50 million views is, yeah.
Maybe we can take one more question. I know you got lots of questions.
Yeah, man.
Prepared.
I have 2 questions. Do you think brands should use like social media content alongside a paid strategy as well? And do you think this is applicable to all industries? What do you think? Like, finance might not be.
Oh, mate, it's our biggest client base, finance. Okay, first question, should paid and organic be alongside each other? And that is going to come down to budget. So budget and need, okay? So paid strategies are very good at activating audiences fast to get them to purchase. And organic strategies are very good at building community and long-term growth, right? And so they have different things they do. Paid is very good for conversion. Organic's very good for community building and brand building. Now, if you have both enough budget to do both, I would suggest doing both. Because let's say your Hairification, what if 90,000 of those people were in Spain and they don't sell in Spain? And now, okay, content's good, but we're showing it to the wrong people. So then you'd use a paid strategy to target the people in Australia to make sure the Australians can go to Priceline and buy it, right? So that's where paid would come in. It supplements this organic strategy. If you just do a paid strategy, you'll always do a paid strategy. And now you're stuck in a slave to Meta and Google and TikTok, because you can't get anything without paid. If you have an organic strategy only, you will brand over time and you can spend less on social, on paid. But what I tend to say to brands is don't spend less, just spend it better, all for conversion. Let us do all the brand hype and build, and you just do the final thing that nudges someone, hey, you should go get a hamburger. You know, you should go get a Big Mac. So I think they should be on side by side. I'm not against either. I just think brand building should be focused on. And then it is applicable to all, social is applicable to all industries. You just got to pick which one. So often a lot of B2B, finance brands, stuff like that, if they come to us, which we got a lot in the finance industry in our company, a lot of our clients, right? We just talked about a finance guy we're filming on Thursday. It is, LinkedIn's a really good spot for them, right? Because they're talking to business owners usually in that, not always in the finance industry, but often they're talking about it. There is, has anyone seen the Keep the Change podcast? Luke Kimmy's? Yeah, a couple of people? Yeah, so Luke Kimmy's is the man, he's awesome. He has a podcast called Keep the Change, he's got about 60,000 monthly listeners, he's based here in Auckland. It is personal finance, and it's huge. But he's an accountant. Like, he doesn't make accounting content because that's boring. So he's found another way to build an audience up that gets people interested, and then he has the conversation around financing and how to look after your money the right way. And so the businesses who come through are like, oh, bro, can you just do my accounting as well? So it is applicable. You just got to find out the right brand position, the right audience, and then what's the right conversation you want to own. Because no one wants to talk about accounting, yeah, or finance. But they will talk about things that are affiliated with that. Cool. Good question.
Okay, great. I know you guys got so many questions I asked him. Probably what we'll do, once we finish it, we can take a photo together with him. And for those who probably this is kind of dream come true, you know, and just post on your LinkedIn, we'll have social media. And also probably have a further conversation with Stanley as well, and probably start to say how the knowledge being applied into business. And for me, I think, thank you so much, you know, it's just amazing to hear some of the practices you kind of utilize the social media to help business to build a strong brand, you know. And also sometimes what we talk about, especially today, the economy is so challenged. I think business need to think about how can we leverage on social media. Certainly, you give us some, different approach to apply social media in life. You know, thank you so much.
Cool. You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
This is from our university, Auckland Vineyard. It's called Goldie.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.